dark psychology may feel like a distant phenomenon that happens only in extreme situations or in sensationalized news stories. Yet more subtle forms of manipulation can emerge in common social settings, professional environments, or even within family life. You might have a friend who constantly guilts you into doing favours. You might have a co-worker who sugarcoats demands to push their workload onto you. Or you may have a romantic partner who uses covert intimidation, leaving you anxious about voicing your concerns. These behaviours do not typically involve dramatic, larger-than-life machinations, but they still revolve around control and the bending of someone's will. Recognising how these dynamics play out is the first step in protecting yourself. When delving into dark psychology, many people focus on the tactics themselves, yet it helps to understand why these tactics sometimes work. Human beings are highly social creatures. We want to belong, to be valued, and to avoid conflict when possible. We have emotional triggers and vulnerabilities that, if skillfully manipulated, can lead us to act contrary to our better judgment. Some individuals, intentionally or not, learn how to exploit these vulnerabilities. Whether fueled by a desire for power, revenge, financial gain, or validation, such people hone the art of manipulation in ways that can be difficult to detect. The manipulative individual often comes across as charming, helpful, or even self-deprecating. Only later might you sense that something feels off. The conversation around dark psychology inevitably touches on trust. Trust holds a crucial place in human relationships. Without it, society would grind to a halt. We trust our friends to support us, our bosses to pay us fairly, and our family members to keep our interests in mind. Yet trust, once misused, can be transformed into a trap. The manipulator may rely on your trust to persuade you to share information you otherwise would not. They may lure you into a scenario where you feel obligated to reciprocate their generosity, only to discover later that the debt comes with strings attached. In such cases, trust morphs into a weapon in the manipulator's arsenal. An important angle to explore involves emotional manipulation. Not all forms of manipulation stem from reasoned argument or intellectual debate. Many exploit the heart instead of the mind. A manipulator might appeal to sympathy, making you feel guilty for standing up for yourself. Alternatively, they might play on your fear or insecurities to keep you second-guessing your own perception of reality. If you have ever felt as though you were walking on eggshells around someone, desperately avoiding anything that might upset them, you may have been caught in an emotionally manipulative situation. The manipulative person sometimes uses rapid mood changes, silent treatments, or veiled threats of withdrawing affection to maintain control. One of the most potent tactics in dark psychology is gaslighting, a term derived from a play in which a husband subtly dims the lights, then denies any change, causing his wife to question her sanity. In contemporary usage, gaslighting refers to a pattern of behaviour where one individual consistently denies or distorts another's experience, leaving them confused or doubting their own perceptions. The manipulator might say, "That never happened," "You're imagining it," or "You always exaggerate," "You're so sensitive," whenever you bring up legitimate concerns. Repeatedly experiencing such responses can slowly erode your confidence in your own judgment. You might start asking yourself if you are indeed overreacting, thereby giving the manipulator power to define what is real or acceptable. Another influential tactic involves playing the victim. This occurs when someone manipulates others by consistently casting themselves as helpless or oppressed. Whenever they are called out for a wrongdoing, they shift blame onto others or onto vague, extenuating circumstances. They may claim you are hurting them by not meeting their demands. This tactic feeds on your empathy. You might feel guilty for asserting your own boundaries if you believe it will add to the manipulator's suffering. Over time, this dynamic can drain you of energy and resources because you constantly feel responsible for the manipulator's emotional state. Some forms of manipulation thrive on confusion. The manipulator may toss out contradictory statements or take advantage of half-truths, leaving you to fill in the gaps. When you try to get clarity, you're met with evasive or ambiguous responses. You begin to wonder if you misunderstood something or if you were inattentive. This can be a deliberate method to keep you off balance. When you're in a state of uncertainty, it becomes easier for a manipulator to direct your actions. By presenting themselves as the only one who really understands what is going on, they invite you to rely on them for guidance, This style of manipulation often leaves you feeling as though you owe the manipulator for steering you out of confusion. Fear is yet another tool that dark psychology often employs. The manipulator might use intimidation, either openly or in more subtle ways, to influence your behaviour. They could hint that disagreeing with them will lead to social repercussions, job loss, or public humiliation. In more personal relationships, they might subtly imply that if you do not comply, they will share personal information that could damage your reputation or self-esteem. Although outright threats do occur, manipulators frequently rely on suggestions and innuendos. This way, they maintain plausible deniability, so if challenged, they can claim they were misunderstood. Fear-based manipulation can be extraordinarily effective, especially when the target already feels vulnerable or isolated. Many people end up wondering how to protect themselves from these tactics, particularly if they have fallen victim before. The simplest, yet often the hardest step is cultivating awareness of your own emotions and gut reactions. If you consistently feel uneasy or drained after interacting with a specific person, that is a crucial indicator. Instead of dismissing that feeling, it can be helpful to reflect on why you feel that way. Ask yourself what is happening in those interactions that raises your defenses or leaves you feeling used. The more you name and understand these subtle emotional cues, the more prepared you will be to spot manipulative behaviour. Still, awareness alone is not enough to completely shield you. In any relationship or social context, it helps to maintain personal boundaries and be willing to assert them. A boundary can be as simple as saying no to a request that makes you uncomfortable, refusing to give out personal information, or ending a conversation if it becomes hostile. The manipulator often tests these boundaries early on. If you yield too quickly, you may inadvertently signal that your limits are malleable. Of course, people with manipulative tendencies can become more aggressive when faced with a firm no, yet consistently reinforcing your boundaries conveys that you recognize your own autonomy. Establishing a sense of inner authority deters many manipulators, since they prefer easier targets who are less likely to stand up for themselves. It is also important to maintain a support system of people who can offer an outside perspective. Manipulation often thrives in isolation, where the manipulator can dominate your reality unchecked. Having trusted friends, colleagues, or family members with whom you can share your experiences can serve as a protective measure. If you suspect someone is gaslighting you, for example, discussing the incidents with a friend who can validate your concerns can help you keep a firm grip on reality. You may discover that your friend observed similar behaviour patterns. Validation from others can be invaluable, especially when your own perception is being systematically undermined. Journaling can be another strong ally. Writing down specific interactions or conversations provides you with a record you can revisit, especially if you start doubting yourself. For instance, if your manipulator insists they never said something that upset you, your written account can serve as a reality check. This can short-circuit the gaslighting effect because you have tangible evidence of your memories. Journaling can also reveal patterns in how often you feel anxious, guilty, or compelled to appease the other person. If those feelings consistently surge around particular triggers, it indicates you are dealing with a carefully crafted dynamic of control. This form of self-awareness is often what transforms quiet discomfort into decisive action. Taking a direct approach can sometimes help if you feel safe doing so. Confronting the manipulator might involve calmly stating that you recognize the tactic at play. For example, if someone uses guilt trips to control you, you might say that you value your relationship but will not be swayed by guilt. This signals that you're not an easy target. However, confrontation can be risky. If the manipulator is vindictive or has significant influence over your personal or professional life, calling them out might escalate the situation. Sometimes, a more prudent approach is to quietly distance yourself, reduce contact, or seek mediation in a formal setting if the stakes are high. Learning to differentiate between persuasion and manipulation can also be enlightening. Persuasion can be legitimate. A friend might try to persuade you to adopt a healthier lifestyle because they genuinely care about your well-being. A co-worker might persuade you to take on a project by explaining how it will advance your career. In these cases, the benefits are mutual or at least transparent. Manipulation, however, usually involves hidden motives and an imbalance of power. The manipulator stands to gain something while you lose freedom, clarity, or emotional well-being. The manipulator might press your emotional buttons without disclosing their intentions. Their goal is to exploit, not to uplift or collaborate. Understanding this difference can help you assess interactions more accurately. Charisma can further camouflage manipulation. Some manipulators are socially adept, quick-witted, and able to read people's emotional states. Their charm may disarm your skepticism. You might find yourself drawn to their stories, jokes, or compliments. Charisma alone does not imply malevolence, of course, but it can be a masking agent that allows manipulative patterns to flourish unchecked. Being aware that charm can be a tool in the manipulator's toolkit encourages you to look for consistency in the person's actions over time. Are they consistent when they do not need something from you? Do they show empathy even when there is nothing to gain? Observing these subtleties can reveal the core intentions. At this point, you might be asking whether dark psychology only involves malevolent or predatory individuals. Sometimes, people manipulate unconsciously due to learned behaviours in childhood or past relationships. They might have discovered that guilt trips or silent treatments produce quick results without recognising the harm they cause. While this does not excuse toxic behaviour, it indicates that not all manipulators approach their tactics with premeditated malice. Nonetheless, whether the behaviour is intentional or a pattern picked up over time, you have the right to protect yourself. Determining whether the manipulator is acting from a place of ignorance or deliberate exploitation can influence how you respond, but your well-being must remain a top priority either way. In many cases, therapy or counselling offers an external, more objective lens on your situation. A trained mental health professional can help you identify your blind spots, reconstruct your sense of autonomy, and develop tools to handle difficult interpersonal dynamics. If you have been in a manipulative relationship for a significant period, you may notice that your self-esteem or trust in others has eroded. Therapy can help restore these aspects of yourself, providing a healthier baseline from which to engage with the world. It can also be a place to unpack any guilt or sense of responsibility you might carry, since manipulators are adept at making their targets feel complicit. Even as we strive to protect ourselves, it is important to remember that the root of dark psychology lies in fundamental aspects of human psychology. We are wired to seek connection, validation, and recognition. These desires can be turned against us if someone chooses to exploit them. The more you cultivate self-worth, emotional intelligence, and resilience, the less susceptible you become to manipulative tactics. This is not a guarantee that you will never be targeted, but it puts you on firmer ground when confronted with manipulative behaviour. You will be more likely to catch red flags early and take decisive action. Another consideration is the role of technology in amplifying manipulative possibilities. Social media, messaging apps, and online forums allow for new forms of hidden persuasion. Catfishing, phishing, or deepfakes can be viewed as modern variations on the theme of deception. These technological manipulations prey on trust by presenting false or misleading information that appeals to your emotions or cognitive biases. When you interact with people online, the absence of face-to-face cues can make it more challenging to detect dishonesty. This reality highlights the importance of digital literacy. Being cautious about the information you share, verifying identities, and recognizing emotional triggers online can serve as a digital shield against manipulation. Staying grounded in your core values helps as well. If you understand what you stand for and what you need out of relationships, manipulative tactics lose some of their potency. A manipulator might try to entice you with quick successes or easy solutions that conflict with your deeper principles. By holding firm to your own sense of morality or personal ethics, you create a barrier that manipulation struggles to penetrate. This could mean declining an unethical request at work or refusing to engage in gossip that serves someone's hidden agenda. While you might face short-term friction, you gain the long-term benefit of not compromising your personal integrity. None of this implies that you must view every interaction through a lens of suspicion. Living in constant fear of hidden agendas is neither healthy nor productive, yet a healthy level of vigilance can exist alongside open-mindedness and empathy. Balanced awareness is often the best strategy. Remain optimistic enough to form meaningful connections while staying conscious of your emotional boundaries. It is the difference between building a secure house with strong locks and barricading yourself in a fortress. You can still open your doors to guests, but you do so on your own terms, with an awareness of potential risks. Reflecting on these ideas, you might realize how nuanced dark psychology really is. Manipulation does not always appear in the form of blatant commands or obvious threats. Sometimes it is a quiet series of nudges that gradually steer you off your intended path. Sometimes it is sweet praise that conceals a transactional motive. It can be comforting to learn that you're not alone in feeling unsettled by certain people or situations. Identifying the hallmarks of manipulation does not automatically fix everything, but it does reduce the fog of confusion that manipulators often rely upon. Once you clear that fog, you can step towards self-determined actions and hold on to your sense of agency. Maintaining your own sense of self is one of the greatest defenses against dark psychology. People with a strong sense of identity are less likely to be swayed by guilt trips, flattery, or intimidation, because they have an internal compass that guides their decisions. If you feel grounded in who you are, you can see manipulative tactics for what they are, attempts to override your personal autonomy. This sense of self is not static. It can evolve over time. Life experiences might shift your priorities or passions, yet continuing to evaluate and refine what matters to you forms a robust shield against external control. When your sense of self begins to fracture under constant manipulation, consider it a sign to seek help. That help might come from a friend, a mentor, a counselor, or even a support group. You deserve relationships built on trust, respect, and mutual benefit, not ones fueled by hidden games. If you choose to remain in a situation where manipulation persists, such as a difficult work environment, you can still keep your eyes open and your boundaries firm. You might also strategize ways to limit that individual's impact on your mental health, whether by documenting incidents for your own clarity or negotiating with superiors if it occurs in the workplace. In everyday life, you have probably crossed paths with people who use subtle manipulative strategies without labeling them as dark psychology. Perhaps they guilt you into attending social events or rely on your generosity a bit too heavily. Not every scenario is dramatic, yet even mild manipulation can accumulate stress and resentment over time. Recognizing the pattern allows you to decide whether to address it directly, create more distance, or recalibrate the relationship. You can do so gently, stating your needs and boundaries in a calm manner. Your well-being should not be a secondary concern. A mindful approach to interpersonal dynamics positions you to nurture healthier, more fulfilling connections in the long run. With all that said, it is worth noting that some relationships are salvageable if the manipulator is unaware of their behavior and willing to change. A heartfelt conversation in which you highlight how certain actions affect you can be a catalyst for growth. If the individual responds with genuine remorse and seeks to alter their behavior, the relationship might evolve into something more authentic. However, if your words are dismissed or twisted, it is an indication that the manipulative cycle may continue. Recognizing this outcome can save you from further emotional strain, guiding you toward either firmer boundaries or an exit plan. There is no universal formula for these decisions, as each relationship carries unique history and emotional investment. Dark psychology at its core highlights how human vulnerabilities can be exploited through deceit, fear, guilt, or charm. The manipulator thrives on confusion and self-doubt. The antidote lies in cultivating clarity and self-trust. That clarity arises from paying attention to your emotional reactions, maintaining records when necessary, consulting supportive peers, and safeguarding your boundaries. Meanwhile, self-trust stems from understanding your values, refining your sense of identity, and reminding yourself that your perspective is valid. When you anchor your decisions in that self-trust, you become less susceptible to the pull of hidden agendas. This conversation on manipulation is not meant to paint you or anyone else as perpetually at risk. Human relationships can be wonderful, filled with mutual support and genuine kindness. But understanding the shadow side of psychology, how manipulative techniques can creep into interactions, empowers you to navigate life with greater wisdom. Instead of blindly trusting everyone, you can adopt a stance of informed optimism. You maintain your warmth and openness while also being ready to stand up for yourself the moment you sense something amiss. As you finish absorbing these ideas, you might reflect on experiences in your own life. Perhaps a certain incident or person stands out, and you realize in hindsight that you were dealing with dark psychology. Maybe you're in the midst of such a situation right now and feel more equipped to handle it. That sense of readiness is exactly the point of exploring these topics in depth. Knowledge can be a shield, especially when combined with firm self-awareness and a supportive network. You now have a broader understanding of dark psychology. You're aware of how emotional manipulation, gaslighting, victim playing, intimidation, confusion, and fear can shape interactions in insidious ways. You know that trusting your gut feelings, journaling events, leaning on friends or professionals, and drawing boundaries are valuable means of self-protection. You recognize that manipulative people may not always be twirling villainous mustaches, but can be charming, helpful, or wounded individuals who learn to get what they want by bending others' will. You see that your identity and values are anchors in stormy relational seas, and you understand that technology adds another layer to manipulation's reach. While none of this is a promise that you will never be manipulated, it offers you the tools to identify and respond to covert persuasion tactics with a clearer mind and a stronger stance. Dark psychology, for all its potential to harm, also underscores the importance of ethical persuasion and genuine connection. It reminds us that understanding human psychology is a double-edged sword. Those same insights can enrich our empathy and help us communicate better, or they can be twisted into manipulative strategies. We each hold responsibility for how we choose to use our knowledge of human behavior. Recognizing that line between ethical influence and manipulation keeps us honest about our own actions and more alert to the intentions of others. If you find these themes intriguing, consider continuing to educate yourself, whether through reputable books, conversations with mental health professionals, or deeper research into social and emotional intelligence. Share what you learn with your circle, especially if you notice friends or family members struggling with manipulative dynamics. Light can dispel shadows, and awareness of dark psychology serves as a form of illumination, casting clarity on situations that once seemed perplexing or disempowering. Ultimately, you have the agency to decide how you navigate the complexities of human interaction. You're not powerless. By staying rooted in your sense of self, by setting clear limits on what you will and will not tolerate, and by seeking support when needed, you can avoid many of the traps manipulators set. Instead of being driven by confusion or fear, you can choose to act with discernment, kindness, and confidence. This journey is not always smooth, but it can be profoundly liberating. Armed with knowledge and self-trust, you become the author of your own story rather than an unwitting character in someone else's manipulative plot. Thank you for joining this exploration of dark psychology, where we have looked into manipulation's hidden workings and the ways we can defend ourselves. I hope it has sparked insights that resonate on a practical and personal level. Feel free to revisit any part of this discussion if you ever find yourself questioning whether someone's persuasion attempts are crossing the line into manipulation. Remember that your instincts and emotional reactions often serve as reliable signals. Though no strategy is perfect in every scenario, continued learning and self-awareness form the bedrock of personal safety. Stay vigilant yet open-hearted, and keep in mind that it is entirely possible to engage with others in a manner that promotes trust, mutual respect, and genuine connection, even in a world where dark psychology sometimes operates in the shadows.